This conference will now be recorded.
All right, it is now 6 p.m. Sorry if I have my back to some of you. I'll call this regular meeting of council to order. I respectfully acknowledge that we are meeting on Treaty 1 territory, the traditional lands of the Cree, Oji-Cree, Dakota, and Dene people, and the homeland of the Red River Métis. We respect the treaties that were made on these territories. We acknowledge the harms and mistakes of the past, and we dedicate ourselves to moving forward in partnership with Indigenous and Métis communities in a spirit of reconciliation and collaboration. Introductions around the table. So I'll start with Ian on the screen.
Hi, Ian Chadsey, Councillor.
And Mr. Randall.
Hello, Graham Randall, Councillor.
Erwin Kumka, Councillor.
Penny McMorris, Mayor.
Lon Turner, CAO.
Steve Axley, Councillor.
Thank you. Come on in. If you can find a spot or.
Find a chair.
No, it's kind of full. Oh, maybe.
You can wheel a chair in here or grab that one there against the window.
All right. So be it resolved that the agenda be adopted as presented. Are there any additions, gentlemen? Hearing none. Oh, I need a mover. Thank you, Erwin. Second, Steve. Thank you. Now, are there any additions?
No.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Carried. Thank you. The minutes of the September 5th, 2023 regular meeting of council have been circulated. Be it resolved that the minutes of the 5th of September 2023 regular council meeting be adopted as presented. May I have a mover? Steve, thanks. Ian, second, thank you. Any comments, questions? They were lengthy.
They were very detailed. Well done.
Yep. They're certainly in order.
All right. Anything further? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Carried. Thank you. Oh, that was fast. All right, so we're moving on to the delegations. So we have 5 delegations this evening. And I would just remind each delegation that you have 10 minutes to be fair to everyone. There may be questions or requests for clarification from council. And I remind those in attendance that the delegations are presenting to council and there is no question period for those in attendance. So, Ms. McKibben, you are up.
Even have a chair.
You have a chair? No, we'll let you sit. Thanks for coming.
Good evening, everybody. It was not a complete surprise that some landowners had come once again to council. None of us like to see the damage done by Mother Nature's wind and water. Nor was it a surprise when council gave permission last year for the replacement of sandbags. I'd like to paint you a quick picture of the aftermath of the 2010 weather bomb. As we all know, there was devastation to King Edward Alexandra beaches and banks. As I recall, the lake rose to 726. A huge public meeting was held at Fort Garry United Church where taxpayers begged council to make this problem a priority. Council did that. That was a horrible time in our community. The community was split. Residents supporting the sand beaches began collecting money to finance a lawyer, should we require one. I think Mayor McMorris can attest to these difficult times. We as councillors were on the phone with taxpayers from all over the continent who were so concerned about the future of our public beaches. Friendships were severed and hostility grew. Council, we don't want to do this again. A shoreline advisory committee was set up with representation from the entire RM. Council and the community were working together. And if you want to know more about the shoreline advisory committee, you have Jennifer Ingrad who sat on it. Baird, coastal engineers / professional engineers were hired, but not before more public meetings were held. Baird broke the beaches into reaches, laying out interim designs for each beach. There was controversy about this due to the cost. However, today we have a template. and have learned that we absolutely need professional specifications for this project, or else we are complicit in the loss of the beaches. Baird worked for months and months with council and the advisory committee. One of the issues had been, was the sand coming from the bank? Council organized a vote in which Pete Zuzik from Baird, Dave Rennie, a cottager, and myself were passengers. Mr. Olafson was the captain. I have to tell you, I am absolutely and completely terrified of boats. However, I screwed up my courage that day. We took samples all along the shore to find out how far the sand actually went out. I was shocked to find the results. I now knew for sure where the sand came from and why our lake, our reservoir for Manitoba Hydro, can be so brown, muddy water. The lake bottom is not sand. It's mud and clay. The sand on King Edward Alexandra beaches comes primarily from the banks, as stated by Baird. We began to understand how costly a permanent solution would be. So when Mark, Julie, and Greg Hansen came with a plan for sandbags, it was seen as a viable alternative and a true compromise. The animosity in the community settled down. It is unfortunate the sandbags were not maintained, although I have no idea if that would have helped last fall. Please understand, this whole process took years. I would beg council at this time to perhaps come to some compromise in the short term, perhaps sandbags, with proper renourishment and maintenance required, while obtaining the professional coastal engineering for a permanent solution. We have the draft. Let's use it. From experience, I know the words professional engineer can be very dirty words at Victoria Beach. We, the stakeholders in Victoria Beach, need your leadership. You know how to follow the science. It is extremely important to have professional engineers, coastal experts who hold the specific education and expertise to accomplish the task at hand. These experts hold professional and personal liability. This adds to the client's overall safety, the client being us. An example is the 4th Avenue stairs. Despite opposition, engineer drawings, design, and specifications were obtained to rebuild the 4th Avenue stairs. I understand the bottom at the beach has not been maintained. The stairs are still there and very sturdy, but the stand has not been replenished and the vegetation has not been maintained at the base, rendering them impossible for many of us to use. For many years, council kept a shoreline item in the 5-year plan in the yearly budget. That entry disappeared in 2018. What needed to happen was to put money away every single year, which did not happen. Why? Because council was lulled by the silence of the community. The sandbags were working, so let's not rock the boat. Well, the boat is once again rocked. Victoria Beach is very, very good at raising private money as well as public money. I suggest council look into tax deductible donations as well as federal and provincial grants. These funds would subsidize the ratepayers. I suggest Pete Zuzik be contacted. He knows Victoria Beach very well. We need his expertise. Again, you know the science. I know each of you will have read all the documentation from Baird. The community knows the science. We lived through it. A final plea from me would be, please do not take beach out of Victoria Beach. Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy. Any comments or questions from council?
Do you have any specific requests or suggestions for council as to what you would have us do?
I think I spelled it out pretty well. I think there has to be probably an interim solution, compromise again. And we absolutely have to start putting the money away. And by the way, Mr. Kumka, I commend you for your beach walk.
It was very informative and good exercise.
I'm sure it was both.
And I had wonderful company. Andrew and my wife.
Perfect. Lovely.
Okay. Anything else? Go ahead, Steve.
I'm just curious, because you had mentioned sandbags as compromise and an engineered solution for a permanent fix. So then that way we put money away every year for the tax, or sorry, in the budget line item. To what end is sort of my big question.
To make the permanent solution, to follow Baird to the T.
So then a revetment that is in line, that is in keeping with Baird.
Baird position, nobody else's.
Say again?
The Baird recommendation. And I'm sure you've read it, you know what those options are.
Okay. And then with the replenishment, then who pays for the replenishment?
We would have to. And I would note that even with the sandbags, as successful as they are, many of us have thought that the beach has gone down, that it's not as high as it was. Those of us who have spent our lives on that beach.
So then it would be the tax, so then you would be okay with taxpayers, a tax increase, so then that way the taxpayer, or the whole municipality pays for the replenishment.
If we don't want to take beach out of Victoria Beach, we're going to have to come to some agreement. And it's not going to be penniless.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Graham or Ian, any comments for Kathy? Graham?
Hi, Graham.
You're muted, Graham.
You're muted, Graham.
He'll get there.
Turn my mic on. There we go. Yeah, just one comment. So far, as council knows, from both the feds and the province, there's absolutely $0 available for erosion. And that's what we've got going on. So we're up against that.
It doesn't mean that we can't try, and maybe a better advertising of same would be good. But also, we are very familiar with the fact that people at Victoria Beach rather like tax deductible donations. And you happen to have, council has, somebody on their staff who is a wizard in my mind with money, and that's Lynn Kimmelman. Lynn managed to have us build the Public Works building without borrowing a dime. And I think Mrs. McMorris would agree with me that we were impressed and grateful and realized that she was a pretty smart cookie.
I'm glad she's back.
Yes, me too.
On the Pete Zuzek, I did reach out. And he's always honest, as you may recall.
Oh, yes.
He said, Penny, I recall talking about creating pocket beaches and nourishing them with upland sand that would also protect the banks and the bluffs and maintain the beach. Unfortunately, and this is the tough love part, the time to do the necessary studies, planning, engineering, and implementation for this more innovative approach of pocket beaches and nourishment was the last 10 years before it got to this point. I recall stressing this in our reports, be proactive. And I think you recall how expensive implementing the Baird report recommendations would be. Now you're being forced to react. Not ideal. I think there was a buffer of land that belonged to the RM, but once that is gone, then the bank, the bluff, the beach is on private property. If that is the case now, I'm not sure you have many options left other than protecting other public use beaches. He's booked up till 2024. May. May 2024, I think he
Who's
said.
that from?
Pete Zuzek.
Okay.
He was the engineer on the, one of the engineers on the Baird
Right,
report.
right.
And I think, I don't know if you recall, that they did do detailed plans for Alex and King Edward.
Yes.
That were Unaffordable, completely unaffordable.
Reach 3 and reach 4.
No,
Reach
reach 3, just reach 3, yeah. So nothing was ever done, right? Because we couldn't afford it. It would have been in the millions.
But we didn't, and I, you were there and so was I.
Mhm.
We didn't proactively put that money away. And I don't want these people to lose their land, but I also don't agree that that then becomes theirs. However,
Yeah, that's a legal battle.
that's a legal battle. Because you don't just get riparian rights. Having said that, I don't disagree that something needs to happen. But I also know that if, I don't think that Pete is with Baird anymore. He's on his own.
So is Jenna Brodnick.
Okay.
She's not there either.
We absolutely have to have engineering as to his original plan. If he can't do it, then we need to find somebody that can design that and
Well,
put it into place.
The guys who did the 4th Avenue stairs, the revetment around the 4th Avenue stairs were geotech. They're from Winnipeg.
Okay,
So we don't have to go to Baird.
No.
We've got the studies. We've got
Yes.
the samples.
yes, we do.
We've got the engineering. We've done all the studies, as Pete says. Now it's time to do something.
Yeah. And if that's a viable alternative, Penny, great. I think that they will certainly benefit, however, from the Baird plan because it was well documented, well drawn out. And you and I both know that we got several lectures, discussions about the wind and what that did and from which direction. And that's why each reach is different. And we were told, don't use rolling rocks because they roll into the sea.
No, especially smaller ones. Right. Okay. All right. Anything else, gentlemen?
Thank you.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Catherine. All right, Jennifer Engbrecht, you are up next.
Hello. So, as Penny said, I am Jennifer Engbrecht. I've grown up going to Victoria Beach when it was my Nana's cottage, and before that, they had rented since at least the 1940s, as far as I know. In 2011, due to my advocacy for learning the best practices of how to protect both the properties and the natural environment and ecosystem of the beaches, I was given the honor of being asked to be part of the Beach Advisory Committee on Shoreline and Beach Management. The result of this committee was that we learned everyone loves the beaches at Victoria Beach. It is the one thing that everybody has in common and that is integral to the shared sense of community. This is a quote from the document entitled "What You Told Us" from September 2011. It would be great for our shared sense of community to put this document back on the website so we can be reminded what has brought us all together in this place, named for its beaches for more than 100 years. In 2017, due to my continued advocacy for following up on what we had learned from the reports and extensive consultation with members of the community, I was happy to be the only member of the first committee to continue on the second Shoreline Committee. The terms of reference for that committee are to work to achieve the goal of providing responsible shoreline management, which is inclusive to both beach preservation and thoughtful shoreline property protection. We were supposed to provide a standard set of designs to mitigate shoreline erosion while preserving the public beaches, which is another quote from that document, which was to be based on the Shoreline Management Plan, a CTEC document called Beach Nourishment, which I have, and Community Perspectives and Community Solutions document from the first Shoreline Committee. It looks as if we were not done when I read this document again because we didn't end up doing all of that. We only did the first project on the stairs on 4th, which are still excellent as a well-planned design, not only approved by CTEC, but created with them and with all members of the community, how all projects should be done for public natural lands. This group was to be reviewed annually, so it should still be running. Because of these committees, I got to meet so many members of the community and hear so many presentations, as well as speak personally on many occasions with Pete Suzek, who was of Baird. Because of this, I'd like to mention some points based on things I've been hearing the last few meetings and generally when it comes to shoreline management. So Pete Suzek, who came to study the shorelines at Victoria Beach, is a geomorphologist. Sometimes I've heard people saying, they're talking about being engineering as well. So I just wanted to add that he's a geomorphologist and studies the movement of sand. He's after he's finished, he shares the study with the rest of the team, who builds according to these parameters of what would work in these areas. But it starts with that expertise. Here's a biography I found for him. He's a coastal geoscientist with 25 years of experience working on consulting assignments across the coastal regions of the world. Zuzek Inc. is dedicated to increasing the health and resilience of the world's coastal communities and ecosystems by managing complex multidisciplinary investigations on coastal erosion and flooding, risk assessments, coastal zone planning, shoreline management, plan development, water quality investigations, habitat protection, and restoration. This is important to note that none of us here have that expertise or experience when we look at the beaches. The second thing I'd like to talk about is because this is a tow revetment and the Baird design is a tow revetment as part of several design elements, they are the same because they both involve the word tow protection. This is like saying that all buildings are the same because they are buildings. Baird's tow protection design as part of a multi-system plan versus a tow rock revetment are not the same. The word tow is the only similarity between these two projects. Baird's design is a multi-system approach with a small footprint of tow protection, but also including grounds and beach nourishment. In a meeting in August 2013, Pete and Jennifer, also from Baird, said that the beach nourishment is needed to dissipate the damage from wave events. It raises the elevation and maintenance would be needed. The current proposal is a tow rock revetment. The rocks are different, the placement is different. I have the original design drawing and specs from 2014. And Baird said in the Shoreline Management Handbook and then confirmed it in the Victoria Beach Shoreline Management Plan that beaches will eventually disappear and property values will depreciate once the beaches disappear. Therefore, revetments are not viable for Reach 3. As well, continuing in the Shoreline Management Handbook, it warns that after the beach is destroyed by a hard structure, referring to as working against the natural processes, the natural downward erosion of the lake bed will continue unabated. As nearshore downcutting progresses, the increased depth of in front of the revetment will permit larger waves to attack the structure, thereby putting the stability of the structure at risk. Along the toe of the revetment, local scouring, which results in wave reflection, may increase the natural erosion. Scour along the toe of a structure can undermine the structure, resulting in its collapse. So that is the point that gets missed a lot when discussing hard structures. Yes, it will destroy the beach, but then it will destroy the revetment, likely pulling land down with it. When I told people this back in 2011, they often became silent. Why would anyone spend this much money to have it fail? Hard structures do not work on a sand beach. This is a microcosm for what's wrong in the world with the environment. We cannot control the environment. We have to work with it. We see natural disasters everywhere in the world with what happens when we try and control the environment. A third point I want to bring up is I keep hearing mention of how the beach will soon be on the properties of a few of these proponents. There is an implication that people can then do whatever they want on their own property, but we can't. The development plan and the zoning bylaw and the Planning Act of Manitoba have policies and laws that state what we must do even on our own property, such as getting geotechnical study and environmental impact study for proposals that are on shorelines. As I was reading through some zoning bylaw info, I was reading about what kind of hot tub I can have, the height of the fence I can have on my property. I can't even have the wrong light bulb facing the wrong direction, and therefore private property owners can't have a negative impact on natural environments with seawalls or revetments. Which brings me to my fourth point. A couple of times the destruction on neighboring properties to hard shoreline structures have been mentioned during the last two meetings. They were used as examples that those lands should have hard structures as well. But actually, I will share another effect mentioned in the Shoreline Management Handbook, that the assessment of proposed protection works could also identify that no adverse environmental impacts will result. A shoreline owner who installs shore protection work that results in damages to other properties may be held liable. This is why an environmental impact study and geotechnical study are described in the RMVB document plan on page 44 in natural hazard areas. When I was looking at Neighborhood Planning District's website, they had a form for anyone wanting to have shoreline protection on their own property. Part of the checklist is having a required geotechnical study that says, geotechnical report prepared by a certified professional geotechnical engineer is required and must include the following information: impact on the proposed work of neighboring properties, comments on the design of the protection, comments on the water control and bank stabilization, letter of responsibility from a geotechnical engineer indicating they will review the work and follow up with a letter of verification upon completion. No room for argument to say one will or will not include this study. It's just part of the plan, a requirement. If a proponent wants to build on the shoreline, they get the studies or they don't do the project. It also has a waiver where it informs the proponents that all damages and action against them on what happens with their plan will be their responsibility and their heirs for their private property plan. And that is just for a small single property, not an entire beach that is public. A fifth point is the mention of groins that that didn't work in the past. Again, these old groins were not working with the environment. The use of the groins in the Baird plan worked differently. My final points, whatever plan is put forth by the proponents, project should follow the Baird plan, which is not missing the beach nourishment and groins and should have the same footprint, perhaps being created in collaboration with a coastal engineering firm. 2, it should have a geotechnical study and environmental impact study that is required whether on public or private property per the development plan. 3, it should be a community solution based on the points from the documents created by the shoreline committees. If a project is completed and has no geotechnical study or environmental study going forward, setting precedent for all other beach projects to do the same, and they destroy the beaches, the way we have learned will happen in numerous documents, studies, meetings, presentations, then we will not have beaches for which this space is named. These beaches are seen on the development plan and zoning bylaw information as parks and open space. The description of the space is described as follows. The natural environment is central to the quality of life for all people of the municipality. Land within the zone is intended to remain its natural state for the purpose of promoting environmental stewardship. According to the development plan, caring for the space we are in and being part of a reciprocal relationship with this space is central to its identity. The ecosystem within the RMVB includes beaches, marshlands, forests, green spaces, and a diversity of flora and fauna. The RMVB is part of a complex watershed that spans numerous jurisdictions. The development plan attempts to recognize that the identity of the RMVB has largely been based on the relationship between the environment and the people. The development plan provides policy support for the sustainability of this relationship. Because it is on a huge public beach, it's necessary to have these studies and follow the community solution of protecting both the beach and the shoreline. The RM has the responsibility to ensure the beaches are protected into perpetuity with any protection projects. We have the answers, we have the science, we have the policies, we have the spirit of the policies to take care of these gifts of these natural spaces.
Thank you, Jennifer. Gentlemen, Erwin?
Jennifer, you make reference to the shoreline handbook.
Yeah.
What is its legal status?
The shoreline management handbook?
Yes.
I'm not sure I understand the question.
Does it have any status within our community? Is it a bylaw or is it simply a group of
The
recommendations?
shoreline management handbook has many elements in it that are included in the Baird plan. And so the Baird plan is referenced in the development plan. It has almost there's many
But
elements that are connected.
currently, the document has no enforceability. It's a recommendation.
But
Yep.
it has similar elements to it in the Baird plan because that's who wrote it.
Well, the
there's
Baird plan does not have any legal status either. We
But
certainly
it is included in the
respect
development
it.
plan. It's asked, it is requested in the development plan that we would be considering that information.
That was defeated.
Why is it in there then?
The Baird plan was going to be in the development plan, but it was rejected as far as being included in the development plan. That's my understanding.
So the current development plan that's on the website that I keep looking up and it says the shoreline like it's.
I think what Erwin is referring to was, and maybe Kathy remembers as well, we sat in at the municipal board for that.
Yes.
It was mostly lawyers playing with one another, but I think what happened is they took out specific plans from the Baird report out of the development plan. The Baird report, or some parts of the Baird report, are still in our development.
Yes, there are. Yes, there are.
But I think specific
At
stuff
one point, there was
taken out.
the intention to embed this into the development plan, and that was rejected.
That was rejected.
Yeah, so embedded, no, but it does say to follow to follow it. And
Some
to
of your
use
statements,
it.
though, seem to indicate that there's a legal requirement to these
I
things. And I'm
didn't
not
say
disagreeing
that.
with them, but
Yeah.
there's,
Yeah, no, I'm just referencing science. I'm not necessarily referencing what, right? So,
You know, when it comes to talk about science with respect to climate and the environment, you know, I'm a mechanical engineer and I can tell you, for example, what the strength of materials are. You can build airplanes based on strength, but when it comes to dealing with the climate and the environment, many of the recommendations are based on some analysis of data. And, you know, we do not have any empirical rules that will say that this beach will go this way and that beach will go that way.
but that's why he came, is he did actually do that. He came and he studied the sand of our
Yeah.
beaches.
But we've
and
seen
studied the
we've
movement
seen
of sand
since 2010 how the lake has changed.
because of what he explained and because of what he
Well, no, I
had
think
done
it's
through his
a
study.
much bigger picture. You know, the whole lake is changing. The whole climate is
But
changing.
it doesn't change how the science of it works. Like it
I
doesn't-
use the word science as a
Yeah,
reflects
I
on
don't
the
think it
environment.
changes what the plan
No.
means.
It's
like the
it's not as
information in
cut
the
and dry
plan.
as we would like to think it is.
I think that particular study that he did of our beaches answers a lot of questions that this was exactly why he came, so that we wouldn't say, well, there's this and there's this, who's to say? But he didn't, that's why we brought him in, so that we wouldn't be able to have these conversations about saying, well, this could mean this could mean this, so that it's been definitively studied in our particular instance.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments, gentlemen? Steve?
So I just want to preface all this by saying, again, we haven't made any decision yet. So, because, yeah, it seems as though people are thinking that we've made a decision, but I just, again, want to throw it out there that we haven't.
Sure.
The first thing I want to say, though, is I really appreciate the amount of detail that you put into your request, because it gives us way more to think about now that you've actually spelled out exactly what you're asking for. So thank you very much for that. When you're mentioning that we have to work with nature, obviously we can't get around nature, but you had also mentioned that what kind of structures we can have on our own property, which is where the development plan comes in and zoning and everything else. And you're 100% correct on all of that, that we regulate as to what you can put on your own property. When somebody stakes, however, are halfway down the beach or all the way down the beach, their property lines, then, and this is the real threat that the municipality faces, is that now we're talking about private beaches. And I know that a lot of people have this idea that, well, maybe we can battle this in court. That was pretty much settled already along the causeway.
He was a true riparian owner.
He was a true riparian owner, but your property is where your property lines are. And that's not riparian rights, that is my property. So as much as we would like to say that, well, this becomes riparian rights, we're not talking about riparian rights, we're talking about where somebody's stakes are. And for people to sort of, and I'm not saying you, I'm just saying in general, for people to have the idea that as the bank recedes, that makes somebody's property smaller and smaller and smaller. That's not the way that it works. So in my nieces and nephews' lifetime, who are taking my cabin over when I pass, if we do nothing now, it'll be a private beach. And it'll be a cut up private beach. And that's the problem that is before council. So again, I do want to really thank you for how much detail you put into your presentation, because it did give us a lot to think about. So thank you.
Yeah. So I don't think I talked about who owns what. I talked about even when it's on private property,
Yeah.
There's rules for what we're allowed to do on it. And like I mentioned, a different planning district, which was the Red River Planning District, and I actually have it in the notes here. They do have this document on their website for people who own their own property and own the beaches. And they still have to get a geotechnical study, and they still have to get an environmental impact study. And when I listened to the meeting in August, I heard it being suggested that that's not going to happen. So I'm hoping, and I think many other people in presentations have said, this is what we're requesting, is there should still be this for anyone who wants to build on any property, whether it's theirs, public property, which it still is, should have a geotechnical study to make sure that whatever plan it is that they're building is actually going to not destroy the beaches. And then, as I explained further, will actually start scouring under a revetment that's not protected. It will start scouring a revetment and it will make it collapse anyway.
Yeah.
So I don't think that anyone, even on their own property, would like to have something fail and actually cause more damage to their property. So this is why we do things like this, so that we don't harm people, etc. So that's it has the potential of being extremely dangerous, even to have things that some people say I'm going to do the geotechnical study, and other people say I'm not going to do that. So I would like to see that we're still going to apply those elements. Like, there's so many places in the development plan that it says that geotechnical studies are required for work that's being done. So,
and we definitely heard that from the community, and we've even heard that now from the province. I was only making the connection because you had mentioned structures on the along the shore, and I was just saying that if people don't have a structure on the shore, you're still dealing with
like,
property.
we talked about the causeway, for example. I'm pretty sure, like, I mean, that's someone's property. There's a sign, you don't walk on it. But we also aren't necessarily going to build something that would damage that space, or potentially could damage the road, right?
Yeah.
Because of what's being built on it.
Yeah.
So this is why there's rules for it.
I was only trying to make the connection, but as I said, we've already heard that from the province.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much,
Anyone else?
Jennifer. Well
Okay.
done.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Helen Forrest.
Well done.
The letter from the deputy minister reassures, is that the one dealing with Thompson?
No,
Who's-
no, it's a new one today.
Well, thanks everybody for having us come, and thanks for Kathy and Jennifer. They were great presentations, and I think there's a common thread probably going to involve somewhere around here. But anyway, the problem we're attempting to address is erosion of sand cliffs, not overland water causing flooding. So the government reacts differently to those two situations, and the solutions are different. We are very fortunate to have had the work done by Baird. And and then he came back after and helped look at shoreline management plan. So there was some continuity there. He had lots of meetings. We had a chance to talk to him to digest the information. And I think we learned a lot as a population. And I think we all go to sleep at night saying, rocks destroy beaches. Like, it just drilled into us, that underscoring and all that stuff. So you have to look carefully at that. We also had the Shoreline Erosion Technical Committee, who did a really detailed report, and then later did a letter on another proposal. And really, the chairman of that committee, who was no longer with government, apparently, I'm told, a very highly qualified person. So we've got these two reports, and I tried to look through them all, and I think they're both incredibly credible, and we've got a lot of information. And I agree with everybody that says, let's start really using it, not doing a whole bunch of temporary solutions. And I also found that those two bodies of expertise did not contradict each other. They were consistent. So what did Baird teach us? Well, first of all, rocks destroy beaches. And he's talking about a dynamic beach like we have with sand cliffs and beach, where the dynamic relationship between the two is essential for the sustenance of the beach. And that's why they've lasted for hundreds of years. But any hard surface on it will flatten the beach by the water comes in hard when it's a storm or high waves, comes in hard and bounces back hard. Action, reaction. And when it bounces back, it takes sand with it because the gravity pulls it down just a little bit. And it takes the sand and bingo, it's out in the lake, which is consistent with what we were hearing from others. And I've certainly noticed that happen on the reach we're talking about on Alexander and King Edward, because now where we had, the sand, there's a lot of sand on the beach, and the beach is flat, except that they're right at the shoreline where it comes in slowly, goes back. So what you want is to come in, go up an incline, slow down, and when it goes back slowly, and it drops sand rather than grabbing it. And that's what I understand Bear was trying to teach us. So the solution he was recommending, and he told me this personally, is sand nourishment, not hard surfaces. He also suggested the sand nourishment could be accompanied by strategically placed groins. And the purpose of those, as I understand it, was to reduce some of the maintenance on the sand replenishment, because it would kind of capture some or hold some. But the trick he taught us, groins are incredibly sensitive. You get it right and they're great. You get it even a little bit wrong and they do more damage than they do good. So you certainly need some advice on how to do the build. He included an option, and it was, and my understanding very clearly, Tom, it was not a recommendation, but there was some insistence it be included because it had been proposed out here, was rock revetment. But he clearly states, but the beaches will disappear.
Eventually.
Yeah, yeah. So he didn't exactly recommend that. He included it there. He also talked about natural vegetation, intentionally planted deep-rooted plants, and replanting brush and trees and so on the upper side of the cliffs, or even on the cliffs. And he mentioned some species of willows that go down 20 feet. So that's an area where maybe it would be good for council or to do some research on what are some of those species, and sort of encourage landowners and maybe council itself to start doing some of that planting, because we've still got.
You want us to plant trees while we're up there doing nothing else?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, sure. But you know, I know there's lots of people would love to
right?
help. Yeah, gardening.
We could drop some seeds.
Yeah, and he also mentioned locations of buildings and their setback from shore. So I'm going to move on to, I looked at what did the technical committee teach us. First of all, he says, his name was Wisham, but anyway, leaving the shoreline natural and considering relocating structures and buildings that are negatively impacted by erosion. That was the first thing he said. Lot drainage, he gave us a really good understanding kind of on the whole lot drainage thing, the drainage from the top down. He mentioned septic fields, perforated holding tanks, and just even heavy rain where it's kind of pooled because of clay or whatever. And you have to allow for that drainage, or the soil becomes saturated and it slumps, or it just kind of oozes out somewhere else and erodes it from the top out to the shore. So that drainage system should be looked at from the top, and also anything you build has to allow for this drainage into the lake to prevent it from pulling the soil and causing slumping. He says, if the drainage is not adequate, rapid failure of erosion protection may occur as the hydraulic pressure can develop behind the geotextile and transport the rock into the lake. I mean, maybe that's worst case scenario, but transport it somewhere onto the beach or somewhere. He also talked about natural trees, shrubs, willows, and grasses, just like Bear did. He recommended the erosion protection be provided to at least 725 feet. So if there were rocks, ideally, the Sept committee recommended a ratio of 4:1, but they could accept 3:1 if the rocks went up to a height of 725. I think the proposal that's before us right now is 2:1. So that's pretty steep, and that's a hard surface. So we don't have any comments on that, but they accepted 3:1 on the understanding that the rocks would go way up. Maybe don't need to go on. He talked, the deep-rooted vegetation, to prevent underscore of soils. It's to make the rock, it be embedded. And he said it needed to be embedded to the low water level, which in Lake Winnipeg is 711. So the proposal we got, I think it was embedded to 716. And I'm not recommending the rock revetment at all, but if it was done, according to the SEC report, it needed to be embedded to the low water level of the lake, which is 711. So it had to go into the sand down to the level of 711. That's their recommendation. And the protection should be transitioned into adjacent lots like feathered, because otherwise it just whirls around and kind of erodes from the back. There should be field inspection during construction. And that the erosion protection should be designed to optimize and maximize, saving the beach. Anyway, so we've got a lot of material to use, and I think what I see is not having more engineering theories or studies of that nature done, but get some expertise and input into how to actually build sand replenishment. We haven't done it, so it seems a bit scary maybe, but we've got an incredibly talented labor force out there. If we can get the expertise to show how the build should happen without hard surfaces, with the slope, and as Baird recommended with sand, which he feels there's a lot of sand in the east side of Lake Winnipeg. It used to be mined from there. That's what I'm recommending. And use what we already know because we trust it. It seems to be good. It's consistent. And just what didn't really happen was getting into the build. Although Baird did go into in the management, shoreline management plan. He did do a little plan for each of the beaches. I'm sorry, I didn't have copies for everybody. And printer problems. And I looked at this, and I also looked at the examples that they had shared with us during the meetings of things, of the sand replenishment in other parts of the world, Barbados, Hawaii, California, the Great Lakes. And I looked at all of those and their descriptions, and in no case did they use rock revetment at the toe of a sand cliff. They did use it if it was adjacent to a walkway, or if it was against a pier that was supporting a structure. But where it was on a dynamic beach like ours, none of the examples he had shown us from the rest of the world had a rock revetment at the toe and then sand on top of it. I did see it used a rock core, they called it, on sort of a sand, like a sand spit or a sand bar that was not attached to land anymore. And they put a rock core, then built sand over it with slope so that they could recover some of that land. But I never saw an example where it was done on a dynamic beach where the cliff and the beach had to work together. And what I understood was by putting a barrier between the two, the sand will scour out for sure, but also that whole relationship, it fails and the beach will fail. So it it started to make sense. It took a bit of reading, but it started to make sense to me. I do think that if there's something has to be done immediately, and I looked at the surveys done in 2010, Sunset Boulevard is still shown as a space. The surveyors show it as a space. It's a legal space where there's a cliff running up the middle of it, and they show that. Sorry, it's in my package, but they show the cliff, they show the bottom of the cliff, and they show Sunset Boulevard. And often the bottom of the cliff and the top of it are right in the middle of it. Mm-hmm. But in no case had it eroded into private land at this point, and it's not even, at least when that survey was done, it wasn't even touching. So I don't think it's like urgent that it has to be done by February. I think there is time to put our resources into the most useful long-term solution. And the question of who owns the land once it erodes into private property, my question is, well, there's still Sunset Boulevard, and that's Crown land. And it doesn't appear to have gone away. It still shows on the survey plans.
Shows on the survey plans, but it's on the beach.
It's beach. It's different, but it's there. It's a parcel of land. And it's owned by, it's Crown land, but there's this whole thing. There's quite a lot of information on the jurisdiction in the SEC report and in a letter from the Deputy Minister of so on. So, I mean, maybe that needs to be sorted out. But it seems to me the one thing Council could also address, in addition to getting some advice on how to build sand nourishment, is Baird identified that there wasn't a clear process for people to apply to get work done. Or I suppose to respond to those projects too. And maybe, I know it's complicated, but maybe that would be something that council could really put some attention to now. So there's a more a transparent process that people know how to apply, who to apply to for this permit, that permit, and other people know.
I think that's the jurisdictional issue.
Yeah, it's a jurisdiction, but it's also a process issue.
Yeah.
Process. Yeah, it involves the jurisdiction. Anyway,
All right,
That's
thank you
it.
very much. Wow, thank you. Any questions? Any questions, gentlemen?
Just a comment, page 20 of the Baird report, there's a diagram showing a suggested revetment.
yes.
And the recommended grade is between 1.5 to 3 to 1. So the current revetment that's being planned is 2 to 1. So that would suit this, it would meet this guideline.
Yeah, but that's for a different
I'm
locality.
talking about the rock revetment angle, and it's clear on the diagram.
Oh, I think that would be different.
That's a different.
Part of the bear.
It's a different,
It's a whole different.
I'd like, at this point, I'd also like to clarify, at the last meeting, I erred on one statement when there was some discussion about what would happen once the erosion crept into private land. And there was the suggestion, and I made it an error, that perhaps that might limit the public's ability to access the beach. I want to read part of what Baird said about this specifically, page 44. If the erosion is allowed to continue without engineering intervention, the shoreline will be located within the private property parcels. If this were to happen, the RMVB will lose control of one of its most valuable assets, the beach. I think what that's saying is if the land erodes in, then we're going to be dealing with hundreds of individuals or dozens of individuals who now have the ability to protect their own property, subject to guidelines, no question. But my concern is if we don't have a fairly continuous solution, instead of a patchwork set of individuals doing what they want to do on their own land, then we're doomed to fail. So we've got to protect the sand cliffs because we have to slow Mother Nature down a bit.
All right,
I'm
thank
really
you.
sorry. There's just one more point I forgot. I mean,
You're done.
never mind.
Kathy just told you you're done.
Yeah. Kathy says,
You
But thank
you
you.
can always email us too. with that.
yeah, sorry.
All right, thank you very much. Up next is Sean Taylor. I know you're in there. There you go.
You counsel. So for over 50 years, the arm of Victoria Beach has debated the topic of revetments. And during that time, there's been little to no scientific evidence supporting the building of revetments on
Can you
sand
speak up a bit?
beaches.
The people behind you are struggling.
Given that the arm continues to entertain the reintroduction of this proposal by lakefront owners, it's clear that we are not unified on what the science is, nor what is in the best interest of the community. So that's what I'd like to talk about today. I'd like to start by discussing beach loss. Over the last 12 years, including in recent meetings, it's been argued, largely in the absence of any evidence, that revetments do not impact the beaches. But what does the science say? In 1972, scientific consensus prompted the majority of US states to institute policies regulating the use of hard armoring. In 1973, the US federal government confirmed these findings in the US Engineering Corps' Shore Protection Manual. They concluded that when revetments are built in a receding shoreline, the recession will continue and may be accelerated on the adjacent shore. Any tendency towards loss of beach material in front of such a structure may well be intensified. Since 1973, the science has consistently supported this conclusion. In addition to a key report in 1988 by Pilkey in 1988, 94% of surveyed beaches in a study experienced a significant reduction in beach width. This is also supported in papers by Sylvester in 1974, Horikowa in 1978, Wood 1988, Rahm et al. 1988, Hall et al. 1991, Fletcher et al. 1997, Runyon et al. 2003, all link hard arming such as revetments to increased erosion and a reduction in natural sediment transport necessary for replenishing sand and preventing beach loss. Moreover, in a paper by Dugan et al. 2018, which examined which examined 88 hard armoring projects, 71% produced significantly negative outcomes in areas such as beach recession, habitat distribution, food webs, nutrient cycling, and biological productivity. In the Manitoba Hydro Lake Winnipeg Shoreline Management Handbook, engineers are very blunt about what happens when you build a revetment. When the retreatable cohesive shoreline bluff is stopped by the construction of a protection structure, such as a revetment, the downcutting of the near shore continues unabated. Quote, any beach that was present will gradually diminish in width and will likely disappear altogether. Let me repeat. It is Manitoba Hydro's official position that revetments will cause the beach to, quote, gradually diminish in width and likely disappear altogether. This is consistent with findings on page 70 of the Baird report, which explicitly discourages the arm from building revetment. At a public meeting Baird project manager Pete Zuzek unequivocally concluded in no uncertain terms that, quote, revetments will destroy the beaches. But you don't have to take Baird's word for it. In a 2014 engineering report for the government of BC, Governor of BC's Green Shore project, SNC-Lavalin, Canada's top engineering firm, stated that, quote, hard engineering structures prevent the exchange and resupply of sand through upland sources and the foreshore beach, and, quote, typically reduce or eliminate shoreline and riparian habitats. Other considerations are the effects on vegetation and wildlife. Robinson 2014, Gitman 2016, and Dugan 2018 cite hard armories having negative effects on the habitats, food webs, nutrient cycling. Dieter et al. 2017, Schoonies et al. 2018 show that artificial structures in the intertidal area reduce ecological zones and limit the movement of organisms on the shore. Particularly in terms of vegetation, Gitman et al. 2015 and Laundrie et al. 2018 find that revetments caused a 39% reduction in local flora and significantly reduced subaquatic vegetation. Lastly, in a 2020 Ontario study on ecological consequences of shoreline armoring, Shore et al. 2020 concludes that erosion mitigation through the use of revetments is correlated with nearshore habitat alterations and can subsequently affect the community structure of littoral nearshore fish. Due to the ecological importance of littoral nearshore zoning, long-term changes to littoral fish communities could ultimately lead to changes in the whole lake diversity. So we must ask ourselves, do we want this for Victoria Beach? And I think that instead of jumping to an extreme and potentially irreversible decision, we should first consider our options that are supported by science. So the option I'm proposing is the living shoreline approach. The living shoreline approach involves restoring natural shoreline habitats through the installation of trees, shrubs, fauna, logs, stumps, rocks, and submerged vegetation. Unlike revetments, living shorelines would increase environmental resilience of our beaches by naturally repairing and fortifying the shoreline. Studies from Alabama by Frith 2019, BC by Robinson 2014, California by Winters 2020, Florida by with 22, I'm not going to go through all the names, but Louisiana, New Hampshire, New Jersey, New York, Washington, and then 16 studies from North Carolina found that living shorelines, 1, provided equal and or better erosion protection than hard armoring, 2, increased bank stabilization, 3, maintained beach width, 4, increased the presence of and diversity of vegetation and wildlife. Again, in engineering reports by SNC-Lavalin for the government of BC for the Green Shores project, they conclude in their case studies, each case study showed living shorelines have significantly better outcomes than projects that were hard armored. So again, here's what I'm discussing: dispersing and anchoring large logs, tree stumps, rocks across the length of the beach. Reintroduce native trees, shrubs, fauna, grass, and submerged vegetation along the shoreline and restore riparian habitats at the base of cliffs. Cover cliff tops with large trees and shrubs to prevent further erosion. I think realistically, we should probably have like a coverage of 60 to 90% in those areas. I don't really see what use those areas would have beyond supporting the bank tops. And then 4, I think there should be a clear prohibition on clear cutting on and in front of lakefront properties, and that we should require lakefront condos to maintain a minimum forest coverage percentage at the front of their property. Optimally, this would involve planting erosion-resistant trees and shrubs such as birch, oak, pine, spruce, as well as honeysuckle and chokecherry bushes. Perhaps 2 feet apart across the width of the property for the first 20 to 30 or so feet of the property. But I think ultimately decisions affecting our shoreline must be based on scientific evidence rather than opinion. And while the lakefront cottage owners have given their opinions, they have provided the public with little to no evidence for their proposal. They haven't even produced an engineering report, which is, from what I understand, the bare minimum needed to build anything larger than a deck. However, Council, I've provided you over 25 articles, including literature review of 88 additional articles that span 50 years scientific findings. The 50 years of research that I've given to you is not a matter of opinion, but a fact. The facts and evidence show that revetments will not only destroy the beaches, but adversely affect wildlife and vegetation. I would encourage you to pursue an environmentally resilient, evidence-based approach, such as Living Shorelines model, which provides a number of cost-effective, sustainable options that do not destroy the beach. Lastly, while a dozen or so people, including myself, have given you our opinions, I think it would be prudent that we wait until next summer to hold a proper consensus and consultation period before anything's decided, because decisions affecting the entire restricted area should not be decided in the off season by a small group of people.
Thank you. Any comments, questions?
Do you know that I'm a nerd for research? So if you send me the Living Shoreline approach documents that you have, that'd be great.
I just give I'll email to you.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, thank you very much. All right. All right, our last presenter tonight is Jim Mansfield.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Jim Mansfield, and this is my first time being a delegation, so apologies if I misstep. I'm a longtime VB goer. I started as a young boy visiting my aunt and uncle's cottage, Betty and Alan Dack. If any of you remember them. My family bought their own cottage at 318 4th in the mid-70s, and since then I've spent at least a few weeks, if not the whole summer, at the beach ever since. I'm a scientist. I've worked at the National Research Council Institute that used to be here in Winnipeg, and I've worked for a variety of international companies developing software tools and instrumentation for medical imaging. So I'm not an engineer by training, but I do have a lot of experience in complex engineering problems. I should state that I do not represent anyone other than myself and my family, but I find that my viewpoint on this issue matches very closely with those of the delegations from last week and those put forward by the VB Cottage Owners Association. So given that overlap, I'll try to spend more time on some new things that I don't think people have covered rather than reiterating stuff. But like all the delegations last meeting, I'm also seeking a win-win situation between the shoreline owners and the rest. I completely empathize with the situation in which they find themselves. I would be very worried as my property eroded away, and I would wonder how many generations would it be until erosion eventually undermined my cottage. And I do understand the flags, the property boundary issue, but I think if I understood Baird correctly, when they wrote that, none of the properties had reached the edge of the cliff, and at the average rate of regression, even on the worst beaches, it maybe is reaching, the top of the cliff is reaching the property lines now, which means they still don't own the cliff or the beach in front. So it is a very different situation. But I'd like to start with the Baird report. It is the only scientific report we have on the state of our beaches, although the last speaker gave a whole bunch of excellent papers that I intend to read. It's thorough, in its broad recommendations and matches other similar reports on sand cliff beaches. And I think the best way to ensure our grandchildren's grandchildren inherit a Victoria Beach that has beaches, and secondly, that has beaches that match what our spectacular beaches were in the past, is to follow the science and therefore Baird or other scientific engineering reports. One of the statements in Baird is that although revetments of any kind will protect the cliffs behind them, they will also cause the beaches in front of them to be destroyed. This is not surprising. It agrees with every source I could find on the topic. This is incontrovertible. This is true for all revetments, however well or poorly they are constructed. As long as a revetment is in existence, it prevents the erosion of the cliff, but it also increases the erosion and sand loss from the beach. This is true for properly built stone walls, as outlined in Baird, for piles of stone, and even for sandbags. Sandbags, however, have the advantage of being purposely temporary, and if they're constructed from sand brought onto the beach, we'll add that sand to the beach as a partial beach replenishment when they fail, and they will fail. There seemed to be some skepticism at the last meeting regarding revetments and beach destruction. We have an excellent example of this cause and effect in our own community. Arthur Beach used to stretch south from the Arthur Stairs for quite a distance. About a decade ago, there was a large revetment built south of that, and since then, another one built north of the stairs. I took a photo last weekend and one in the spring when there's still ice in the lake that shows because of the low water levels, that you can clearly see the negative effects that these revetments have had on the beach. There is no beach remaining south of the stairs, nor has there been for many years, except at extremely low water levels. And one can easily see the reduced amount of sand in front of the revetment north of the stairs and the transition to a full beach starting just north of the revetment. The VB Cottage Owners Association has a larger, more comprehensive and well-documented analysis of this to present you. But at the risk of being repetitive, it is clear revetments cause the destruction of the beach in front of them. The Baird report, though, is just that. It's a report, not a detailed action plan. They repeatedly discuss the mitigating factors needed to accompany any revetment, which I point out have not been done with any revetment of any kind that has been built in VB so far, including the 4th Avenue stairs that have lost the sand in front of them. Among these factors are the use of perpendicular beach structures, groins, parallel beach structures, offshore breakwaters, and beach sand renewal by bringing in sand. I've included a picture of Alexandra Beach in 2021 that actually shows the protective action of breakwaters because there's a natural breakwater in front of the stairs and of the groins. Baird repeatedly states that the specific uses of both groins and breakwaters and how they will work along with sand renewal can only be worked out in a detailed action plan for each beach. So the bits that are in Baird are not detailed action plans, and they repeatedly state that the location and type of the groins and offshore. So, you know, what is needed for each beach still needs to be worked out. To the best of my knowledge, although I may not have all the knowledge, there have been no specific engineering plans and cost analyses based or done on Baird for any of the beaches. I'd be happy to find out. We have such reports. I'd love to read them. But without detailed action plans, including where we should place breakwaters, groins, etc., we're just blindly having discussions and making decisions in a vacuum. One of our first courses of action should be to commission detailed plans for all the beaches. Another thing that I haven't heard talk of so far, which was mentioned in Baird, is the importance of lake level. When the lake is low, there is no erosion of the cliffs to the water. There may be erosion to other factors. This also means that when the lake is low, revetments have no actual immediate purpose. It is only when the water level is high that the erosion of the cliffs to the water and waves is seen. And that problem, of course, is exacerbated by strong north winds, storm surges, wave actions, also as highlighted in Baird. During high water and storms, revetments protect the cliff from direct erosion, but at that time, they have the unfortunate effect of amplifying the removal of sand from the beach, also as per Baird. This dichotomy of high and low water effects may explain some of the anecdotal feelings people have about the effects of existing revetments. When things are low, everything seems fine and the revetment seems to be doing its job, but when it's high, as it was last year, the effects are clearly seen. The level of Lake Winnipeg in any given summer is determined by many factors, the largest of which is the rainfall in the Red River watershed. However, since 1976, hydro has also played a role in regulating lake levels. Hydro lake level management has two major effects: mitigating high water levels through their ability to drain more water off the lake, and reducing low water levels by keeping the lake level from dropping below what is profitable for hydro. They've also had, according to their own calculations, only a very minor effect on average lake levels. Take that with as many grains of salt as needed. Personally, I'm skeptical. It was in the 80s and 90s that our beaches started to decay from their former glory, and I do not think this is a coincidence. But even taking hydro at face value, their management is a double-edged sword for Victoria Beach and the other beach communities around the lake who are similarly suffering. Reducing extreme highs or shortening the high water time is a good thing, but reducing extreme lows is not. Extreme lows is when the sand on the beach naturally redistributes into more gentle slopes. So we cannot change the amount of rain that will fall or how hydro will deal with that. But one thing we cannot overlook in future planning for beaches is the role of climate change on precipitation, red river flows, and lake levels. No one can predict exactly what climate change will bring, whether it will bring more or less rainfall on average. However, all the predictions do agree that what we can expect are more extremes: higher highs, lower lows, and less time between them. Hydro will, of course, try to mitigate highs and lows, but reducing time between extremes will put more pressure on the beach, as it will not have the historical amount of time to reestablish an equilibrium. What we do for the beaches should take this into account. The high water of 2022 clearly caused cliff erosion on the beaches, but the ones that appeared to me to have suffered most are Patricia and Arthur. Patricia now consists of a steep and gradually collapsing cliff and a very flat beach, while Arthur has almost ceased to exist due to the revetments there. However, we find ourselves discussing a proposal for a tow revetment on Alex and King Edward. While I do understand the need to discuss the proposal in front of council and come to some conclusions on it, it does feel to me to be a bit like the squeaky wheel theory as applied to our beaches. All the beaches require care, and in my opinion, Alex and King Edward are not the most critical. One proposal I heard to address the Alex King Edward situation in the short term is to replace the sandbags. Sandbags do protect the cliffs from erosion during high water, but like all revetments will cause sand to be removed from the beach if and when the water level makes it up to them. But as long as the sand for them is brought in from the beach and they are not built from sand on the beach, they will act as beach replenishment when they do fail. So in the short term, until a broad plan based on the recommendations in Baird is in motion, they seem like they're a good choice. If anything needs to be done on Alex and King Edward. And personally, I do think that's an if. As I mentioned earlier, Baird is a report on generalizations about possible solutions. They're quite clear that specific solutions need to be designed on a beach by beach basis, considering the current situation, which is now a decade or more later than when they last wrote that, and importantly, funding. What can be done and in what order things should be done will likely depend very much on the financial resources that can be put to this task over the coming decades. I believe it would be cent wise but dollar foolish to only address these critical beach issues partially, one at a time, not doing any of them well. We'd be spending a great deal of money without a reasonable chance of long-term success. We also need to commission a regular documentation of the status of our beaches. Anecdotal evidence is not sufficient basis for decision, as we all learned during COVID. We should establish a group whose task is to photograph the beaches from the same vantage point with the same camera width every month or so. Perhaps this is a good job for a volunteer group. I'd be happy to volunteer to help. Primarily what I propose is that we need to have Baird or another similar shoreline engineering company come up with the detailed plans needed for all the beaches, from the pump outs to the pier, including prioritization, the details needed on revetments, groins, offshore breakwaters, living beach renewal. There's a lot of different choices, but most importantly, the timing, volume, and cost of construction, and what seems to be a necessary thing, regular long-term sand replenishment. Because once a revetment is built, it will require sand replenishment in perpetuity. Only with that kind of information in hand can good long-term decisions be made about our beaches. Okay, so that's a great idea. The only problem with it is it will be expensive, as you mentioned many times, perhaps very expensive. But without the costing and prioritization in hand, it will be difficult to decide what to do and when. In the meantime, knowing that this will be expensive, all efforts should be made to investigate possible funding, crowdfunding, donations, one-time levies, tax increases, funding from outside the RM. In addition, since the Alex and King Edward shoreline owners have already proposed paying a certain amount for work, they should be asked if they will keep their commitment, but to a larger plan, one with a reasonable chance of success. There's another possible source of funding that was pointed out to me by a hydrological engineering friend. The Manitoba government has announced a new fund to support infrastructure work for municipalities just last month. So reading briefly from that, the Manitoba government invests $84 million to support key infrastructure projects for municipalities outside Winnipeg for shared priority projects that address current and emerging infrastructure needs. This funding will empower rural municipalities to create stronger, more resilient communities that will flourish for years. And one of the criteria for acceptance in the program is climate resiliency. It is not too hard to argue that given the increased rates of erosion and forecasted extremes of water level coming, this kind of project would be eligible. I've included a link to this announcement plus copies of the photos in the electronic submission I sent earlier. So in conclusion.
Okay.
Oh, yes, I'll be very quick. Yeah. When our grandparents' generation passed on their cottages to the next generation and then to us, I'm sure they had no inkling of the danger their beautiful community would be in now. They could not have imagined the risks to the beautiful beaches that originally drawn them there and for which our community was named. We are very much at risk of having 50 years from now to rename our community to Victoria Cliffs, because if we do not act properly, starting now and continuing for the next several decades, there will be no beaches at Victoria Beach for our great-grandchildren to enjoy, just cliffs. I feel strongly that science and proper engineering need to be our guides. Short-sighted, short-term partial fixes are not going to get us anywhere. They may actually make it worse. So it seems we have two major options. Buy out all the shoreline properties and let nature take its course. And given that our beaches have been under severe erosion since Hydro started managing lake levels, it's not even guaranteed that that would restore our beaches. Or two, have a long-term commitment to following the recommendations in Baird. I would like to preserve our beaches and community through sensible action based on science and engineering best practices.
Thank you. We have, just so you know, we have applied for that grant.
Oh, cool.
In the past, like last year. Erosion protection measures do not qualify.
Yeah, that's bad.
Right. That's not considered infrastructure. Especially for second properties, right? Maybe if you lived along the river and you were that kind of a community and that was your permanent residence, but generally second residences, second properties and shoreline erosion don't get funding. If you're flooding, you can get disaster financial, which we did last year, but it's much more difficult to get erosion protection funding. We did try. Doesn't mean you couldn't try again, but
yeah, there may be other vehicles because this will cost a lot of money, almost guaranteed.
Guaranteed. All right. Any questions for Mr. Mansfield?
More of an idea. We never talked about a breakwater to $5,000. It'd be an extreme cost, but that would be infrastructure.
But it's in the lake.
It's in the lake, but that
It's
would.
not on our property.
That's Department of Fisheries and Oceans, but yeah.
I'm really just going to jump on one thing that I actually meant to say during the last delegation, which is the amount of salt you had mentioned. That's about the size of the room. Because if you take a look as to the year before and the year after when that lake was flooded, there was a beautiful beach on Patricia, and then it was gone overnight. So I find it actually very cute that Manitoba Hydro puts on how to mitigate the loss of land when they're responsible for so much. Anyway.
All right. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you very much, everybody, for your thoughtful presentations. Oh, sure. We can take a 5-minute break. 17 after 7. We'll be back here at 25 after-ish.
This conference will now be recorded.
Hello, Lon, can you hear me? Lon, can you hear me?
All
Okay,
right.
well, volume-
Can you hear
okay,
us now?
we have volume now.
Yeah,
Thank
we
you.
can now. Thanks.
We
Sorry.
got two different controls here for the volume.
Okay, sorry, I was just giving the Public Works report. So tree removal of dead and dangerous trees continues. Work has been completed on some paths and trails. Landscaping in some areas has started. Landscaping and work on trails will continue, and that's where I said the guys are really using their new skid steer. They're making a lot of projects come to fruition. So preventative maintenance is ongoing on all municipal equipment. Safety checks have been completed as required. Preventative maintenance. Unfortunately, our garbage truck is broken down. So if you were at the beach on the weekend, you would have noticed that our bins were rather full because our garbage truck has broken down. And our mechanic is taking his course to finish his apprenticeship. So he was working on it on the weekend though.
Okay.
So they were doing the garbage pickup today or yesterday with the 1-ton truck, hand bomb and everything. The part has been ordered to do the repairs, so please be patient. Much needed cleanup of ditches in the 4 main areas have begun. Grading of roads continues. Brush can be put out on the road allowance until Monday, October 16th. Is that the Monday right after is that Thanksgiving Monday?
No, it's the 8th and the 9th. It's October.
All right.
Thanksgiving.
At that time, Public Works will pick up brush piles for chipping. Public Works staff will also be around at some point for bags of leaves. Civic signs have been ordered for this year and will be installed by Public Works in the fall, weather permitting. Water samples from the water treatment plant, the well at the fire hall, and the Albert Beach Pump House continue to be taken to Winnipeg regularly for testing. Seasonal water will be turned off on Tuesday, October 10th at 9 a.m. for staff to start the process of winterizing the water system, walking the lines, and shutting down the plant. That is Public Works report. Ian, I'll move on to finance for you.
Okay. I'll start with the balance sheet. If you look at 2022 versus 2023, cash on deposit for 2022 is about 2.8 million. And for 2023, it was 1.6. And as Lon pointed out to me on an email, that the difference is really the cash that's going towards the Selkirk School. And you can certainly see that on the total liabilities, which compares to 800,000 for this year versus 2.2 for last year. So all in all, the surplus for this year is 7.65 as compared to a 6.9 last year. So I think we're in pretty good shape there. As far as the budgets, all departments pretty much are tracking, their expenses are tracking their budgets. Total revenue was 3.2 million. That's actual year to date versus a 3.45 on the budget. And expenses are 2 million versus 3.45. So there's a surplus of about 1.2 million. And again, I think everything is in pretty good shape. That's all I have.
Right. Thank you. Fire protection. Steve, did you get, yeah, Brad sent his report.
There were a total of 5 emergency calls this month. 3 of the emergency calls came from the Arm of Alexander. One of the emergency calls was for a brush pile that was set on fire near cottages. Just please don't light your brush on fire. This was put out, and the person responsible was made to leave, and police were notified. The next call in the Arm of Alexander was for a dead tree that fell onto a vehicle and hydro line. No one was in the vehicle at the time, and the hydro line was not live with the fire when the fire department arrived. The last call was a false alarm. One of the 2 calls in the Arm of Victoria Beach was for a tree burning when it fell and landed on a hydro line. The area was made safe, and when the tree burnt through and fell off the hydro line, the fire department was able to put the tree out and make the area safe. The other call in the Arm of Victoria Beach was from a resident that could see smoke in the distance. With it being dry in the area, a search for any fire was done. None could be found. The fire department continues to check and maintain their equipment and gear during the summer season, and we'll return to regular training scheduled in the following months. And just a reminder, please go onto FireSmart, the website, and enact everything that is reasonable for your property and replace your conifers with deciduous trees, specifically drought-resistant deciduous trees.
All right, thank you. Police, Erwin.
Things are quieting down a little bit. In August of this year, there were 238 calls recorded, and that compares with 353 for July. There were 2 arrests in the community. Individuals had failing to comply with a court order. There were 4 assists to the RCMP. 1 involved a stolen vehicle. Another involved transporting an accused for fingerprints. There was a roadblock set up in regard to a kidnapping incident in Grand Marais. And there was a situation where our police were asked to assist to attend to a house to keep the peace while the victim was retrieving her property. And those are incidents where our police are helping out the RCMP. There were 6 parking tickets issued and 17 traffic and parking complaints investigated. They had 19 traffic enforcement events, but only 1 ticket was issued. So they're issuing some warnings. And the comment from Patrol Sergeant Rex Seiler was, it appears that people are slowing down and obeying traffic rules. That's good news. And all dog, fire, noise, and garbage bylaw calls were investigated with no bylaw tickets being issued.
All right, thank you.
It's taken 6 years, but they're finally slowing down.
Yeah.
It certainly seems so. Just, I noticed the traffic flow on Safi and people are, those radar signs have helped a great deal.
And both Chief Paul and myself got in touch with MPIC. They're handing out literally
Plate readers, license plate readers.
Are they licensed? But they're also speed signs, I thought. So Kevin said, I contacted them, let me do it. I said, absolutely. So hopefully we'll get a couple machines next year.
Yeah, very good.
I have no special events to report, so I'll move on to the golf course, Ian. Oh, I stopped in and brought the money in for a lawn today too, by the way.
Oh, great. Yeah, no, I actually was playing golf yesterday. So the golf course is in great shape. Fairways are very green, so are the greens. As far as any work being done, I think it's all complete. I think they're going to do the ramp. I saw something about that in, I guess, next week or the week after. That ramp will get built. And there's good traffic there. So they really are busy on the weekend. So I think they're going to come in better than budget.
Good. All right. Thank you.
Can I suggest starting the first hole?
Shortening the first hole? Sorry, no, you got to
do it.
No, yeah.
You got to make that first hole a par 5.
All right. Thank you, Ian. Moving on to Graham for municipal buildings.
Okay, I've submitted my report in point form in advance. Just running through the items. The Village Green Accessible Washroom Project. There was a meeting on September 18th, yesterday, with the general contractor and the building subs, and of course, Public Works as well. We agreed on the locations as to where everything has to go, and it was decided to clear a few more feet to make room for the ramp. And Wolf expects to get the holding tank in before the end of September. So we're off and running at last with the Village Green Washroom. Albert Beach accessibility. I met with Curtis and went through the list of plumbing requirements, and he was going to attend to that this week. I've ordered some materials to go into the unit and a few extra for the Pier Point party. So Curtis is on that. Next is the parking lot. There's a meeting set up on the 21st, to which I've invited Tim Green just to give us an overview using the latest maps that Penny and Lon have concocted and shared with us. Kevin Attia won't be available, but I'll follow up with him as soon as he returns. We need to come to grips with the size, shape, scope of the expansion of the parking lot, and do some work on the estimated budget pricing for our budgeting process that comes up in not too many months from now. The information office, we've engaged Eagle Rock Construction and to start some renovations, including painting and the trim and the roofing and those windows that are cracking all the time. The only thing that our friend Mike Sandyman could come up with was plexiglass. So we've decided instead to replace the units all together with proper operable windows with glass in them. Next on the list, the barracks. We're replacing Mitch Poirier is working on the winter water and the holding tank as well. We ran into some complications with that old holding tank that's going to cost a few dollars, but hopefully not too much. And Mitch has that in hand. DMD is waiting for the permit from Hydro, and this all revolves around getting the barracks hydro and water winter ready for our assistant police chief to move in October. The police CCAN, we're looking at the possibility of some insulation and some fixtures that are required in it, and we had unfortunately had to order a replacement man door. So that's in the works, and the fellow who supplied the CCAN originally, and they were just a wonderful referral from Ian, his ADM storage. He's going to bring it out himself personally because he happens to have a cottage at Hillside. The golf course accessibility ramp, I talked at length with Grant today, and there's still a few more details that I'm not satisfied he has a firm enough grasp of. He was going to start on it today. I said, no, we want it done right. I'll be meeting him there sometime tomorrow to review the requirements of that project. He's all ready to go to do it. I just want to go through some of the details with him before he starts work. And parcel of his contract built into it, he's subbing out to Chris Feeks the proper metal handrails on both sides. The Emergency Services Building Grant. This is this humongous grant that Lon's been working so hard on. I sent to council today, attached to these reports, the new improved plans of that complete project. So you've all got them, and Lon, you've got yours as well. They come out in rather small scale, but it's possible to blow them up. So that's good on Unit 7 for coming through. He said he'd have them to us in a week, and he did it. So Lon, we should be getting pretty close to you having everything you need to consummate this grant application for October 7th or 6th.
6th.
You're happy with what you got from it so far?
So far.
Okay.
Okay. Anything else outstanding that you're waiting for?
No, I don't think so. I got all the fire truck quotes from, and that plan was nice, so just guessing on the cost, I guess.
All right. Well, I'm not one of these people who can't take yes for an answer, so that's good. Thank you.
I guess if you know anybody in commercial construction that could look at the plans and give you a cost per square footage, roughly. Somebody mentioned 400 square feet.
Ian already got a budget price on the construction from Olympic. We could take another run at them, but I don't know if they're equipped to come up with estimates on this short a notice for the whole project. Ian, have you looked at the new improved drawings that I circulated today?
I just had a quick glance. I didn't really study it.
Okay, yeah.
Olympic gave us a pretty good quote I don't know if the size has changed all that much, but it was around
Oh, yeah.
100,000
It's
materials.
quite a bit bigger and more elaborate and more details. Now you met with Olympic. Would you like to call me when you've had a closer look at those plans and we can agree between the two of us whether it's worthwhile running them through Olympic or not?
Sure, absolutely.
All right, thank you. Thank
And
you
we can
very
run them
much.
through another supplier as well, just to get a competing quote.
Well, who else we got who could do a building like that?
No one
Well,
local.
there's Olympic, there's Star, there's those are, and well, I suppose there's
I
other
think it's
ones.
beyond, I think it's beyond Star's capacity because they're just doing pre-built houses pretty much. There's a lot of good general contractors around. I'll tell you what I could do, Ian, and that might help Lon out. I've got to talk to our architect tomorrow. I ran out of time today. He can probably give us a name or two or somebody who can give us a quick and dirty budget price on the whole project. Does that sound reasonable?
Yeah, sounds reasonable to me.
Okay, I'll try that.
It's not a
See how it
simple, so,
No.
you know, I would be inclined to go with a higher per square footage of say $400 for budget purposes rather than, you know, geez, you can't build a house for $400 a square foot now. Well, this is not a house, but that's an element to it.
Well, I prefer to find someone that would,
Let's
I mean,
let's see
square
if we can
footage,
find somebody who can at least give us a price,
Talk to Dean- talk
budget
to
price
Dean
per
Thomas.
square foot. Lon would throw in an extra 15% for contingencies anyway, from
Sure.
whatever we get.
Graham, I have a question about the Albert Beach washroom.
Yeah.
I'm led to believe that it is currently being used. It's unsanitary. Can you have Public Works put a lock on the door, please?
Well, that'll go through Lon. Lon, can you ask Public Works to put a lock on the Albert Beach door and make sure that Curtis has a key because he's going to be in there trying to install all the various devices that go in there. And on that subject, a recent email to you as well, Lon, asks about the parking signs and a sign on the door of the facility. But let's get it locked up till Curtis has been in there to install the toilet seat, the grab bars, the toilet paper dispenser, the hand sanitizer, the solar lights, all that junk he put in, pardon me, all that stuff he put in to the Pure Point facility. And I've also ordered, just for the hell of it, a couple of lockable storage cabinets that can contain spare cleaner and spare paper to make it a little bit easier for Public Works as they run around to service these units.
Graham, the parking lot will need some grading as well. The summertime rains have eroded part of the pathway where a wheelchair would move from the parking lot out onto the little laneway, and that needs to have some more fill put in.
All right. Well, we at one point, Wayne's Backhoe had put in a figure to improve the path down to the lake. That's what you're talking about, right?
I'm talking about actually the area right around the washroom. If you look at the edge up against the fence, there's quite a bit of erosion that has taken place, and a little pathway that goes out to the lane has partly eroded away. So a wheelchair could easily get stuck. It just needs probably a yard or two of quarter down crush. That's all.
Okay.
Okay.
Excuse me. Just want to make a note of it. I noticed the rivulets of erosion when I was there a few days ago. That may very well continue. We might have to provide an asphalted face to that buildup. If you look around the back of the building, it's quite a steep drop off.
That quarter backs down pretty nice. It's lousy when it's wet though. It tracks awful.
I was only just going to say that point of order and that this isn't the report
All right.
anymore.
But yeah,
Questioning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
okay.
Point well taken.
We don't have any A-base or quarter down left in our public work stock, do we, Penny? Has Dane got a pile there?
They have some. I'll talk to the guys tomorrow.
Okay, would you put this to them that the parking space at the toilet could use some more fill? It could be half-inch down or A-base.
We'll have a look and the guys will probably have a good idea what to do.
Good.
With
All
their
right,
new.
thanks.
All right. Thank you, Graham.
Okay, and I was going to conclude with the Moonlight Inn by referencing a report from Unit 7 Architects. I talked to Dane yesterday. He was going to send me a report to council and all the rest of the committee on all the recent developments, a number of very positive developments regarding the Moonlight Inn, but I haven't received it yet. So I'll present that to council as soon as it arrives. And as far as it going to the public, I can read it out at the next council meeting with your permission.
Absolutely.
That's my municipal buildings report. Unless there's other questions or comments, please.
Nope. Thank you very much. I did see some people working down by the Moonlight Inn. Drew was down there the other day, and Alpha Tree Service was down there as well, but I didn't go have a look.
Yeah. Okay. I'm meeting with Aaron tomorrow morning at the inn. He's packing it up and putting things away. We do a kind of an exit interview every year before he flies the coop, just to go over what worked and what didn't work, and what's in the cards for next year. So I'm meeting with him tomorrow, and then I'm off to hopefully catch up with Grant over at the golf course, and then the following day is the parking lot. So I'll be gainfully employed for the next little while, I guess.
Yes, putting the miles on. Thanks, Graham.
Yep.
Who's driving you around, Graham?
Well, I'm not supposed to drive without my glasses, but don't tell anybody. But I really
Sorry.
You won't tell a soul.
driving
It's being recorded.
Winnipeg and navigating city traffic. I can't see perfectly with my new eyes. I still need glasses.
There.
And they don't want me to get new glasses for another 3 weeks or so, is what the surgeon said. You know, you should wait a month before you go see your optometrist.
All right.
Sorry, I asked.
So I can drive unofficially if I have to. Well, if I run out of beer, you know, then I have no choice.
All right, moving along, gentlemen. Doctor's Cottage, Doctor's Committee. Steve.
Basically, everything is all wrapped up. Ms. McKibben is just going to have one more meeting, and then she is retired. We have somebody else who has come on board, which is great. So somebody to take over. One of the things that I'm going to be trying to do this winter is to head over to the U of M and try to talk to some of the new graduates to tell them that we obviously need doctors, especially in the summer, and try to entice them to come down. The doctor shortage is getting rather brutal, even for us, and we need to find new ways of getting doctors. So, I mean, it's just more of a public call out to everybody in the municipality. If you know a doctor, please ask them to get in contact with me or the committee.
What about, we got an email from one of the new people on the committee, and they're wanting to bring in nurse practitioners, which I think is a fantastic idea.
Yeah.
I don't know anything more than that, but
yeah, so she's the new person I was mentioning that's come on board. So that is one of the options that would be at our disposal. It does limit as to what we can do, because obviously there is a difference between a nurse practitioner and a doctor. However, for our community, you know, is it really going to make that big of a difference?
Yeah.
But ideally we'd have a doctor. So failing that, then, you know, we would be exploring that option as well. So
I would suggest you reach out to the Eastern Region Health Authority. And I don't remember the name of the doctor. What's her? She's the executive director.
Oh,
Yeah.
Mary Nellis.
Mary Nellis. She would be very helpful, I'm sure, in providing some guidance on that.
Yeah, and the committee's already
Yeah.
done, so.
Good, good.
All right, thank you very much. And so you're gonna have a final meeting and then we'll get sort of the final report.
The
annual-
final report, yeah,
Annual report.
absolutely.
Good.
But again, I am going to be trying to go to the event and see if I can entice any of the new grads to swing by this summer.
Well, they'd have to finish their residency.
They would, yes, yeah, absolutely. But
Get the word out. No,
Well, plus they need the billing number.
there you go. All right, communications. I don't have much to say. I mean, this is it.
Yeah.
It's improving every meeting.
Well, you know, I haven't put anything on our Facebook page for a while.
Right now, is everybody communicating with us?
Yep.
Yeah, that's true. All right, summer gate office, the gate office is closed, so I have nothing to report. Building inspector, Graham?
Yes, the report from Curtis that I've submitted, the number of new permit applications is predictably starting to drop off at this time of year, even though there's a lot of work still in progress. This time around, for the month of August, we have 1 addition, 1 demolition, 3 sheds, 3 decks, 1 bunkhouse, 1 development. The value of permits, about $250,000. Permit fees, $3,898. And the year-to-date figure, year-to-date value of permits is $6.1 million. And permit fees collected year-to-date is $49,829. Thank Curtis for his report.
All right, thank you. Accessibility, the accessibility committee is having a meeting this weekend, so I'll have more updates after that. Heritage and trails,
Trails, there is that proposal that's before council that the trail committee was proposing, and so that would, they were asking that the accessibility committee take a look at that. And the cross country skiers are getting, up and running and, getting ready to go out there. There was one thing, which is that the trail systems are looking really ragged along the side, and it's something that we need to start addressing, which is just that forested area in general, but also, again, the trail system itself is getting to be a lot of work for volunteers. So, yeah, there's one gentleman who is an expert in forestry, and my plan was to talk to each one of you individually about what his proposal would be, for a way that we can start to get a handle of the whole system.
okay.
Did you send that to us?
No, I was going to have a conversation with you individually.
Okay.
And,
All right, thank you. So Friends of the Inn, Graham, you've already touched on that, so I think.
Yeah, I'll present the report as soon as I get it. Suffice to say, some very positive developments.
That's great.
Good.
All right. All right, be it resolved to adopt the monthly committee reports as presented. May I have a mover? Steve, thank you. Erwin, second. Thank you. Bye, thanks for coming. All right, moving on to accounts and finances.
Whoop, we forgot to vote.
Oh, sorry. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, thank you.
Thank you, Graham.
All right, moving on to accounts and finances. Be it resolved, the following list of accounts be approved for payment. Checks 11594 to 11636, totaling $186,940.22. Visa statements, May 21st, in the amount of $5,486.12. June 21st, $4,977.65. July 21st, $5,738.19. May I have a mover? Steve, thanks. Ian, second. Thank you. Anything to discuss, Ian?
No, I just point out that the of that 186,000, it was 129,000 was the skid steer. So that was the big item on that.
And that came out of the equipment reserve, correct?
Everything else was pretty small.
Quick question, why were there 3 monthly Visa payments made in 1 month?
They're not, they get made automatically through our bank.
Oh,
They just take it out automatically, just when it does that.
Okay.
So
So it's just,
reconciler was just a little behind. I
it's
had
just
to ask
up-
her, I said, when was the last time we did that? She went through and did all 3.
so it's just an update. It's like a
It's just
journal entry.
Yes, correct.
Got
That is right, yes.
all right. Any further discussion? All
Nope.
those in favor?
Right.
Gary, thank you.
Yeah, I was concerned we were paying Visa later.
No.
You know what the
Yeah,
interest
that
rates
was
are
low.
for that? No way. Right, business arising from the previous meeting, the zoning bylaw update.
Do we have
We're
a-
still
do we have a-
waiting for something from Andre.
We're waiting for a date.
Yeah, he was gonna get back to us.
I thought he
Maybe
was
give
at
it a call.
the end of
Well,
September.
we had that meeting and he just kind of reviewed everybody's feedback and suggested some possible new zones and that sort of thing. I can't remember my notes now. What did he?
The plan is to have a public meeting in Winnipeg sometime in
Oh.
mid-October.
Yes, he's working on the draft bylaw that he's gonna have a public hearing on.
But we should
Wait,
secure a
feedback.
venue, I mean, across the street.
Yes, that's right. We're still waiting for a date.
For a date,
Right.
yeah.
Okay.
Was he saying that we would have the draft and then do the public meeting? Or
Yes.
the other way around?
No, I think the other way around. With all the feedback that he's got so far, he's kind of prepared to put together some notes that would go into
A draft.
That's right.
a draft bylaw, and then he would present that, circulate it, and then have everybody's feedback at the public hearing. That was my interpretation of our meeting.
So the draft would be, people would have the draft before the meeting is my point.
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
yes,
I'm not sure about that.
yes, that'd be the plan, yes.
Okay.
Steve?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, just make one suggestion that we do one of the reviews of the new draft over at the beach. So we're gonna have the meeting here. Like, we want to ensure that it's just fair for everybody, because the last thing that we want is for somebody who's at the cabin or at the beach to say that, I wasn't able to get into the city to review this. It's like, we want us to be as open as possible. And it wouldn't be that hard to
So
necessarily.
you're saying
set
do
that up.
a city one and a beach one?
Yeah, exactly. So it's just as open.
I think he was
and
open to
transparent as
that.
possible.
Was he? Yeah,
Yeah, I think so.
okay.
Well, what would be even worse is people complaining that they didn't hear about it. So let's use
Well,
the,
Next, it'll be what we do.
let's use Connect to get this information.
Okay. All right.
Keep in mind that if you have, the more meetings you have with this bylaw, he charges, right? There's the big part of the budget is for these meetings. So he's budgeted for 2. So if you have more, the budget goes up, right?
Yeah, there's the last thing that we want is to have to start this whole process again because, we weren't hearing people or
Why
what
couldn't
have
we,
you.
why
And it's
couldn't we
trying to be
do,
as open and transparent as
why
possible.
couldn't we do a virtual feed from the Viscount Court to the social scene?
Not everybody has the internet and.
No, they would come to the social
I'll
scene.
talk to him, see if he can include it in his proposal, the extra meeting there.
Okay.
You may not have to have 6 guys go up again like you did before,
No,
maybe just 1 or 2.
Yeah, this might be a different format.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
okay,
So
good.
we'll leave that in your hands to touch base with Andre. Thank you. New business, tax sale. Date change. So be it whereas service of the first notice of tax sale auction could not be effected within the time frame prescribed in 361.1 of the Municipal Act, and whereas pursuant to 369(1)(c) of the Municipal Act, a municipality may adjourn the auction of all properties offered for sale. Be it resolved that the rural municipality of Victoria Beach adjourn the tax sale scheduled for November 15th, 2023 to December 13th, 2023. Further be it resolved pursuant to 369(2), a notice of the adjournment be posted in the municipal office. May I have a mover? Steve, thank you. Second. Erwin, thank you. Do we have to put this in a newspaper as well?
Nope, just the last thing.
No? Okay.
What was the reason for the date change?
The strike, the tax sale, people had to get in contact with people at land titles, and because of the strike, just they pushed everything back. They couldn't.
And how many properties are involved?
No, I think there's 9,
Fine, yeah,
9 give or take. I think 9. It's come down to.
something like that.
But people can pay up almost to the last minute.
Most do.
Right. And where's the list of the properties? Where do you find that?
We have it posted in here. I don't put it on the website, but it's in the office on the wall. I can send it to you, anybody who asks.
And
Yeah,
I've
if you
no-
don't mind, send me a copy of it. I don't mind
This
seeing
is
it.
on the wall here.
Yeah, and I've noticed that tax service has put, a piece of paper on a stake in front of one property that's on 6th, advising residents.
Okay.
Is there a reason that we don't put it on the website or on Facebook?
I don't know.
I haven't done it. I don't know.
Confidentiality.
Well, it's posted
Public
publicly,
information.
but if
I can
people
put it
are
on the
interested, they can call the office
They
as
put it on the
well.
website.
Yeah.
Like, we don't list the person's name,
No,
we list
no.
the
The
property,
property,
the
yeah.
physical location of the property.
Yeah, their own number and address, so.
Yeah.
Right.
When you send Ian the copy that he's requested, would you copy me on that too, please? Lon?
I'll send it out to everybody.
I mean, people can call the office and ask as
Yep.
well.
Sure they can.
Okay, so any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Carried, thank you. And I know in the past, we've only had a couple of these. Council isn't expected to show up for the tax sale. It's more of an administrative thing. It's run by tax service in the office, and our presence isn't required.
But we pay them for the work they do.
Well, it all
The
comes
tax
off the
sale.
tax.
Yeah.
It all
We get it back.
Yeah, all right. Okay, thank you. Moving along, union agreement, finally. Whereas the collective bargaining agreement, or the CBA, between the International Union of Operating Engineers, Local 987, OE 987, and the Rural Municipality of Victoria Beach expired on 31st of December 2022. And whereas the RMVB CAO made a request to OE 987 in September of 2022 to submit a new CBA for review and approval. And whereas RMVB CAO received on the 8th of September 2023 a new CBA for the period of the 1st of January 2023 through to the 31st of December 2025. Therefore be it resolved to authorize the entry into and approve the agreement in accordance with its terms and content, and to authorize Mayor McMorris and CAO Turner to sign the agreement on behalf of council. May I have a mover? Steve, thank you. Second, Graham, thank you. Finally,
Yep. There you go.
that's a big
Can
one.
I ask a question on that? Was there any discussion at all with them as to whether they wanted to actually renew that agreement?
It's not up to us.
That's not up to us. They didn't really say anything to me. They just kind of went ahead with it.
We're not allowed to ask something like
Yeah.
that.
No.
But it's so many. So many.
We have to be really careful. We have to
Yeah.
be hands off on union agreements, and
That'd be up to the employees there, yeah. Unless you know more. I don't have a ton of experience with unions, but that's what I know.
Basically,
So I
we're
just
not-
didn't know if there was any discussion on that as to, I know they had it, and what is there, like 9 people involved?
oh,
more than that.
Well, it's all the part-time and full-time public work staff, so it's more than that. It's,
14?
yeah, a little more than 9, yeah, 9 to 15 people.
So
Okay.
we're not allowed to talk about anything along the lines of terminating a collective agreement. We're not allowed to insinuate that they should, or even insinuate that they might want to consider it or consider something else. It is 100% entirely up to them, and we're not allowed to say a word when it comes down to that.
Yeah.
Otherwise,
I wasn't asking that question, Steve. I simply was asking if there was any discussion, that's all. But
Yeah.
it sounds like there wasn't. That's fine.
I
That's
know
the
they're
answer.
not happy that it's taken this long to get an agreement in front of us. That's the part I can answer.
You're speaking on behalf of the public works people now. They're unhappy that it took so long.
Well, I don't think they're happy.
It's been a
This
year.
is for January 1st of this year for a pay raise, and they haven't seen it yet.
We weren't dragging.
No, we weren't.
No,
The union was dragging.
Yes.
can I just say one thing? And this is only because like this goes back to my business and everything else. If we just like start
Mhm.
calling it the collective agreement. It's a
The
small
CBA?
point. It's just, it
The
was
CBA?
ingrained in my head. You never call it a union agreement, it's a collective agreement. That-
It's a CBA.
Yeah.
It's like nails on a chalkboard to me.
Oh, all right. Okay, any further discussion? Lon did send you a comparison of the changes, and it all seems reasonable. Lon reviewed it, the guys reviewed it, the union reviewed it.
Just one question. Manitoba has not declared September 30th as a statutory holiday.
That's correct.
So
They asked for it. The municipalities usually
We
take,
have given it to them.
yeah, it's like, even around Easter, we get the Good Friday and the Monday off, municipalities do, and
Mhm.
So it would be a
So-
municipal decision. It's not a
it's more
statutory
based on
holiday.
the federal kind of thing. Federal has declared it, I think, hasn't it?
Manitoba hasn't.
But
Mhm.
Manitoba has not.
But we,
So we're
But I
giving,
guess it's built into most of their other union agreements,
Probably.
collective agreements that they
I
have.
was just curious about, the term stat when it's not a stat.
Yeah, right.
it should be a stat, essentially,
I
but
just said that because it's, for them, it would be, because they would get it off.
Right.
Municipalities.
Yeah.
There is some, no, it's on a Saturday this year and they do get the Friday.
The Monday
Well,
off, following
If
Monday?
it falls on a Sunday, they get Monday. If it falls on a Saturday, they get Friday.
Oh, okay.
and I know they changed some of the positions, right?
Yes.
But,
They removed one and added three.
and added, yeah, oh boy. All right, yeah, removed parks, okay. All right, but seems
That's good to
reasonable.
me, yeah.
You're comfortable with it, Lon?
Yeah.
Good.
All right, any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Great, thank
Aye.
you. Okay.
We gotta have a long conversation about this next one.
Right. It's up to you.
All right, up next, be it resolved to approve a 3% CAO wage increase starting 25th of September 2023. May I have a mover? Erwin, thank you. Steve, second. Do we really need any discussion on this?
I
Is it
mean,
a
you've
re-
done a fantastic job, so I mean, really,
Thank you.
like more money.
Well, it's consistent with what we were doing with the unionized employees.
And it's a cost of living adjustment, and it's just, I mean, I know it's being sarcastic, but like, you've done a hell of a job.
Thank you.
There you go.
Hell of a good job.
Yeah. All right, okay. Any further discussion?
Nope.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank
Aye.
you.
Thank you very much, Council.
No, thank you. Oh, and this is another one, finally, we're getting there. Whereas the RM of Victoria Beach passed bylaws 1637 closing a road allowance and 1638 opening a road allowance, which involved switching property ownership of parcels to account for public waterworks pathways. Therefore, be it resolved to authorize Mayor McMorris and CAO Turner to sign the agreement on behalf of council. I have a mover. Erwin, thank you. Ian, second, thank you. So this has been going on.
For a
Since you
year
first
since I got
started?
here,
Yeah. Just seems to be how long it takes. And if you get something wrong, you go back to the drawing board, right? Anyways, this is the RMVB and Ritchie land swap. It's just one of those funny little areas in the community. There's one right across the street from me on the corner that's the same, where they had land on the back. No. Yeah,
This one cut on the south side of their property, but our
Right.
water line kept going north.
and
So-
the hydro
And the
line.
hydro, yeah.
Yeah, so it's just a matter of sorting things out.
So there was no map in the agreement that I read. There was one section said map and it was blank.
Oh, was it?
It just took a while to
Oh,
load on
it's
my
on-
computer.
It's on the back, one more page down. It
Okay.
is there. It was in the thing.
Well,
Yeah.
I got the one on the left, but I'm not sure.
Well, this is the parcel up here. And there's
Okay.
two parcels on that piece of property that show it being swapped.
So we're,
So you stopped reading at this page. You had
Well,
to go down again.
yeah, okay, I went to map, I scroll all the way to the bottom and it was blank.
It took a while for it to load on. my
Okay,
computer.
okay. So we're swapping land
Yes.
Yes,
and the
they're
legal-
paying us a little bit for all the legal
and,
proceedings and costs.
and what about the
transfer tax and
legal
stuff.
fees?
Yeah, they agreed to pay for part of that.
Okay, that's what I read. Good, seems reasonable.
Yeah, so it's nice to get that moving forward, finishing hopefully. All right, further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Carried. Thank you. All right. Oh my gosh, correspondence, information, announcements. Just a reminder that we are moving offices here in the city. We're moving to 2035 Portage Avenue, right beside Sergeant Sunday, in October, early October. I guess we'll have to put out a connect notice for that so people don't go to the wrong place.
So when are we out of here?
November 30th.
November or October?
The lease expires November 30th. That one starts October. I had to get that 2-month crossover.
That's okay.
Sure.
And you're satisfied with how it's going over there? The work being
Yeah,
done?
commercial property's a totally different ball of wax, that one, and that kind of thing, but I think the office will be really nice. Yeah,
Staff's
all the
happy?
staff are very, very happy about it. I think,
Well, you're right next to Sergeant Sunday, so.
well, exactly, across from the park, yeah,
Yeah, and a coffee shop.
coffee shop.
And it's
There'll be
close to where
parking
people
right on the
live.
boulevard and the streets and Portage Avenue to get into it, so.
Yeah.
I think it should be fine.
Yeah, good.
It's a 5-year term.
Yeah.
This one, they wanted 7 years again, so.
So our costs are, they're
Yeah,
gonna
they're-
go down a little bit, I'm told.
They could. Yeah, the annual operating costs here always fluctuate really good, so they're pretty steady. They're fixed actually for 5 years there, so.
All right.
It was really cheaper. It was a lot cheaper when we first started out, but by the time you get the leasehold improvements amortized over the 5 years, it kind of kept working up. But it's not more expensive than here. It's a shorter term and the same or less expensive.
Okay.
Good.
All right. Any other correspondence other than shoreline revetment issues?
A question has come up about, we're seeing evidence of blue-green algae all along the beaches.
Yes, that was one.
And I believe there's a requirement for our water treatment people to be doing some field testing when algae is visibly present. Is that being done?
I will follow up with them first thing tomorrow. That's the first I heard of it, so.
There was a number of field test kits supplied. We purchased them
Yeah.
last year. You may remember that.
They have those.
It was a directive from, I believe, from the Office of Drinking Water.
Yep. I will contact them tomorrow.
Okay.
I was on the clubhouse beach yesterday, and the algae is just really like a pea soup. But there's it's dried on the sand. It's like a ribbon that just runs the full length of the beach, at least 3 feet wide, and it's just dried algae. It's I've never seen it that bad, to be honest.
Like the teal color or the green color?
Teal.
The bad color.
Yeah.
That used to disappear or dissipate over time, partly through the Albert Beach Channel. Now that is blocked off, I think the algae is going to continue to get worse over on the traditional Victoria Beach side of the peninsula. We may have to consider an initiative or engaging the province to open that causeway up. We're only just beginning to see the effects of it being closed after being open for most of the last 100 years, and you're not going to like the results. It interrupts the dynamic flow of Lake Winnipeg, where it comes out and turns right and heads north and draws some of the crappy Victoria Beach water with it. We're cut off from that now. Just
And are you
food
saying
for
cut
thought.
off by the Elk Island Causeway?
Yeah.
Is that what you're referring to?
Yeah,
Normally the water would flow up Winnipeg River and kind of
Yeah.
move around and have a bit of a churning action on the west side. Now
Yeah.
all the water's going up the east side
Right.
of Elk Island. And so you're getting more stale water trapped along the west side.
Well, we did put $25,000 into a dredger.
Well, it's kind of hard to dredge on dry land. You need to excavate.
yeah. No, you just do it with a loader or a backhoe.
Going back to the erosion
There
issue.
was 1 or 2 local residents did it many years ago of their own initiative with their own equipment. Just go down there with a backhoe and dig out a channel, and you'd be amazed the current that flows through there, depending which way the wind's blowing. I'm just suggesting food for thought. We got to keep an eye on the longer term effects of that causeway being closed off, and the possibility of us opening it up.
But good, so
DFO.
You'd have to
Yeah.
get Fisheries and Oceans approval.
Yeah.
Oh,
fisheries
yeah.
and,
Yeah, you might offend a minnow.
I don't think it's
So,
hurt like our property, and then at the same time, going back to the erosion issue, if you're starting to allow more currents to come through, then you're going to help to move the water around, which is not good for erosion. So
Yeah, but
I'd be more inclined to.
We have to be very careful. We own Elk Island,
it is a
It's-
park.
But it's provincial
It
park.
is
but it's
provincial
part
park.
of our municipality.
Yeah, but it is a provincial park. Food for thought.
Yeah.
All right. Anything else, gentlemen?
nope.
All right. So motion to adjourn, be it resolved that the September 19th, 2023 regular council meeting be adjourned, and to confirm the next council meeting will be held Tuesday, October 3rd, 2023 at 6 p.m. again here in Winnipeg at this office.
Yep.
Correct?
So starting in October, we're gonna go back to the
May I have a
original schedule.
Mover, please.
Sorry.
Thanks, Steve.
So the
Second. Thank you, Erwin.
So the first meeting of the month will be here, and the second meeting of the month will be at the beach. Okay. So I almost went to the wrong place. If it
Well-
wasn't for Mayor McMorris, I wouldn't have been here
I know.
tonight.
Maybe we should consider, September, both meetings in September being at the beach.
I would think that would be a good idea.
Yeah, I would certainly be in favor of that. Both September meetings at the beach.
So let's look at that for next year. All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Hit the
Carrie.
road, Jack.
Thanks, everybody.